Hello my children, your new dad here. Today we're going to be talking about the terms that we use in Smite. I wanted to do this before I did the items video so that when I do the items video I can just go ahead and tell you what it does and it'll be like a 15 second video. With that being said, we are going to go ahead and talk about Smite as a whole. And what that means is a MOBA. And what a MOBA is a massive online battle arena. Now I'm sure you've heard of PvP, which is player versus player, and I'm sure you've heard of PvE, which is player versus environment. There was a really smart man one time who said Smite is a PvPvE, a player versus environment. What that means is that farming and objectives and towers are extremely important to your success in Smite. Now, farming is the act of killing minions, killing jungle monsters, anything that's going to give you gold and experience. Now, it's okay to be greedy with your farm, to go ahead and steal the other person's jungle, or so on and so forth. And the reason for that being is it gives you money, it gives you items, it lets you get ahead so you can be aggressive and honestly just get kills because you're so far ahead the other team can't do anything to stop you. With that being said, I also want to give a mention to the first 5 minutes of the match. The first 5 minutes are going to be the most important because it usually decides the first blood, which gives extra gold upon kill, and it usually decides how the laning phase is going. Now there are 3 types of phases in a MOBA. There is the early phase or the laning phase, which basically everyone sits in their own lane. They don't really deviate too much, they don't really go around the map too much. They're trying to farm, especially the pros. You'll see that they farm heavily, they're always farming. The second phase is going to be your mid phase. This phase is going to be what we call the ganking phase. And what a gank is, and yes, you will hear it a lot, is a surprise. It is when someone comes out of the jungle, out of a corner, you did not expect to see them there. They're going to come out, probably focus you, especially if you're a squishy character, and try to get the kill. And the last phase is what we call the team fight phase. The team fight phase is exactly what it sounds like. Your team versus the enemy team. You are going to hope that your composition, your team comp, works better than theirs. Okay, so I want to go back to the start. Your start should generally be your starter item that is close to your class. So if you're a support item, so on and so forth. You also want potions, and most new players don't realize the advantage of potions. And I ain't talking about the multi-potions. Honestly, I don't really like the multi-potions that much. But the health potions and mana potions, if you're not picking up at least 2 in your early laning phase, you're generally going to go behind if the other person does, because they are going to be able to stay in lane longer than you, therefore effectively getting more farm than you. Now I want to talk about team comp, and team comp generally has a support, a warrior, a mage, an assassin, and a hunter. The reason for this is because it kind of fills the void. So basically the team comp is you want your support to initiate, you want your mage for burst damage, you want your hunter for constant damage, you want your assassin for those kills that just get away and you really can't get to them since most assassins are mobile, and then you want your warrior who's just supposed to be the big bad tough guy. So now we're going to talk about crowd control, or CC as it's called, and there are 2 types of crowd control, hard CC and soft CC. Soft CC is something like a slow, which a slow reduces your movement speed, and then a hard CC is like a stun. A stun will lock you in place for however long the duration of the stun is. So crowd control can be from a stun, a disarm, intoxicate, slow, silence, trimble, push, pull, mez, execute, walls, blind, knock up, root, banish, taunt, and cripple. Almost everything I said there can be cleansed, which means removed, by purification beads. I felt like I had a really strong Guan Yu support in this game, so I'm just going to play it in full while I talk over it. So there's a lot of crowd control, and I just went through them, but what do they mean? I'm going to say what they mean, and if you don't understand what they mean, you can message me and I will try and explain it to you. A stun stuns you. A disarm makes you not auto-attack. Intoxicated moves your player for you. Slow slows you. Silence means you can't cast abilities. Tremble makes you move on your own. A push pushes you, a pull pulls you, a mesmerize will leave you stunned until you are auto-attacked. Execute will finish you off after a certain threshold. A wall is a wall, a blind is a blind, a knockup will send you into the air and there is nothing you can do. A root will keep you in place but you can still dash. A taunt will make you attack the person who taunted you or make the person attack you. A banish sends you into another dimension, and it depends on the character if it does damage or not. A cripple means you cannot dash, jump, backflip, anything at all. You're crippled. You have no legs. Now, like I said, purification beads is almost a must in every game. If you see something like Ares, grab beads, please, just grab beads. Even dodgy, just grab beads. Almost always. It's honestly kind of standard. For real. Grab beads. Defensive items that you can go into are Magi's Blessing, which gives you a free beads every 75 seconds. At the moment, they might buff and nerf it. I'm sorry, don't outdate me, please. Next thing we're going to talk about is DOT, or damage over time, also known as a tick. There are abilities in the game that when they hit you with this ability, it will keep going because it does damage over time. Attack speed is important to mention here because there is a move penalty in Smite when you auto attack. Your character physically slows down. Now the more that you go with attack speed, the less time you're spent slow down, and there are some items that remove the attack speed penalty. I've mentioned this before, but I want to mention it again. There are physical and magical items in the game. Now, there are a few terms you're going to hear, and these are just what I wrote down randomly, so they're going to come in a weird order. The first one is scaling, and what scaling means is it takes the power that you have and converts that full power into whatever percentage the scaling is at. So 70% of 100, for instance, would just be 70. HP 5 is health per 5 seconds. Every 5 seconds, you're going to get so-and-so health back. Now, it will go every 1 second, but they just wanted to make it easier. MP5 is mana per 5 seconds. Relics are the thing you hopefully buy at the start of the game. They are very powerful and very good. You should probably buy them. Consumables are your potions, your magical potions, and your elixirs and stuff. The ones that cost 3,000 gold that I'm sure you don't know what do, and I'll have to make a video on it later. CCR is crowd control reduction, so everything that we talked about earlier, the stuns, the disarms, and so on and so forth, this reduces the amount of time. There is caps in Smite. I want to make that clear. You cannot just go full attack speed. It will not work. But you can go all items that have attack speed on them and try not to cap out at 2.5, which is the max for that stat. Lifesteal for mages works differently than lifesteal for physical people. Physical gods only get lifesteal on their auto attacks unless you have Gladiator Shield. Now mages get Spell Vamp, as it's called in other games, and that just means that their spells give them the lifesteal. And it is very powerful, and Anubis hurts. I know that you see all these noobs playing Anubis. Trust me, when there's a good one, you feel it. You feel it really hard. There's two types of penetration. There is flat pen and percentile pen. A flat pen is like, let's say 25. You have 25 flat pen, which isn't real because like 15 is the highest. But there are natural defenses in the game that every character gets, including minions and towers, which is why penetration is highly valued amongst everybody. Mitigation is a fancy word for saying you did not take this damage. If an item says it gives you so-and-so mitigation damage, it's going to just take away those numbers. If it's 15%, whatever burst happens to you is gone. There's a great item called Spirit Robe, and that really works well for that. Now, while we're talking about crowd control, or CC, we are going to be talking about diminishing returns, which means if you continually get CC'd, so let's say a stun after a stun after a stun after another stun, oh hey, a silence, every single time is going to be less for you because that's how the game works. Proxy is the act of going in front of another person's tower to clear their minion wave. Now what this does is forces them to try to fight you, which hopefully you're at a bigger advantage than they are. This forces them to stay in their tower and have to clear wave instead of free roaming and getting some farm, which you're probably taking anyways because you're far ahead, remember? Healing is the act of a guardian warrior, or anybody else really, generally compared to those two. Those are the best for it because they have so much crowd control. And what it is just applying crowd control to someone so that they stop attacking. Usually it's like to a warrior for their carries because the warriors are just really good and the carries really can't fight them because it's early game. The last thing we're going to talk about is passives, and passives are important for a character and for a character's item. Generally when you start other MOBAs, you buy small items at a time. Even buying a tier 3 item and a tier 2 item, you don't do that in Smite. In Smite, you just go ahead and try and buy the item in its entirety, and you usually want it for its passive. A great passive to have as a support is Sovereignty and Heart Words, which give you HP 5 and MP 5 for your whole team as well, and protections for your team as well. It's very standard for supports to get that, and it usually works very well for yourself too. I don't play a lot of Conquest. I played Ranked for a while, I got up to Gold, but it really just wasn't my thing. Everyone's so angry all the time, and I just rather play this game for fun, like I started playing it for fun. And that would be rotation. Now rotation is two things really. So it's clearing your wave and then rotating. Now this is really only done in Conquest. It's done on Joust and Clash as well. It's clearing your wave, moving to the jungle buff or the other person's lane. And if you're going to a jungle buff, it's a short rotation. You should get what you need to get as fast as you can and get out. You're just there for the buff, you're just there for the experience and the gold, and you're leaving. Now if you're making a rotation to another lane, you're usually going there to either relieve pressure or to get a kill. Now Smite is a team game, and unfortunately it's always getting new players, which is why I really wanted to make this. My friends really asked me what I knew about Smite because they saw me play it and they were like, oh man, that looks so fun, how do I play this? Well, there's not that many good guides out there, so I really made this for them, and I hope the rest of the internet enjoys it. If you enjoyed it, go ahead, share, like, subscribe. You can also find me on Twitch. I'm going to leave the rest of this game up for you guys to watch. I felt like it was just fun to watch. I'm sorry. If you hate it, go ahead, exit out. It's fine. for those of you that sat around and watched, I'm going to put this little bit in. A buff and a nerf. A buff is when an item gets better or a god gets better. Something is changing, they are getting stronger. And a nerf is when an item or a character gets weaker because they are probably too strong, like Dodgy, please help us. And someone do something about Discordia. Also, is Fenrir coming out soon?